Okay, I think we might as well start. Now I can see that Tom Thorelli from Chicago has joined us. That's always a good moment to start this webinar on US e-commerce expansion. First of all, I'd like to thank our collaborators and mentors for supporting us in this. And in a few minutes, I'm going to ask each of them to stand up and say a few words about who they are and what they do. Before I do that, I'd just like to explain a little bit about GTM Global, who we are and what we do. And essentially, we're an ecosystem that helps scale up businesses in digital and tech go to market globally. And in this case, obviously, we're very much focused on expansion into the US through e-commerce. And we really help companies in that transition phase as you're scaling to connect to the right partners on the ground in that country to help you grow there successfully. Now, this webinar is framed very much on a high level, and there should be some really interesting presentations, very short and snappy, from some key experts. Now, if any of you as delegates want to connect to them afterwards, we would love you to do so and to contact either myself, Mark here, or my co-founder, Ian, who I'm just going to hand over to now. And Ian, can I ask you to maybe expand a little bit on some of the up-and-coming events we're doing, and also the housekeeping for the day.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for those abroad. It's great to see everyone here. Just to say a little more about the GTM program, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've put now over 4,000 UK companies through the program, helping them to expand to the USA, to the Middle East, to East Asia, and to some locations within Europe closer to home. We do this through a program of different types of events, this webinar being one of those. Today, you will hear some fantastic headline information about the opportunity with e-commerce in the USA. And in the coming weeks and months, we will have follow-up e-commerce workshops where we will look and do deep dives into specific areas that will be relevant to your expansion plans. So do please keep an eye on the GTM Global website for future events. And on that note, I'd just like to remind you now, we do have on the 2nd and 3rd of December, 2 workshops for companies looking to expand into the Nordics. And those workshops, you'll get to meet some fantastic in-country specialists who can connect you to business opportunities, channel partners. They can help you set up your business and help you with all of the compliance piece around that. On the 15th of December, we have a webinar which is around helping you to fund your international growth. And in that webinar, we have about 12 experts from VCs, government grant agencies, R&D tax specialists, debt funding, a whole raft of different ways to help you fund your international expansion. It's a must-see event if you are looking to fundraise. And we know from the community here that a good 50% of you, not surprisingly, given the international expansion, are looking for that. And if that's not enough, and finally, on the 28th of January, we are running a pitching event, and this is the second pitching event in a program of events we're running for funding, helping to fund scale-up organizations. The last event, we had 26 VCs and private investors and family offices from UK, USA, representing somewhere in the region of $2 billion of funds. And there were 10 very lucky brands who got to pitch their opportunities. And I know that there are several discussions still ongoing there. So that's a date for your diary, the 28th of January. And when we follow up tomorrow with details of the contact details of everyone on this webinar today, we will provide details for you to register for those events. Mark, I think that's about it for now.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. And obviously, in terms of just a general housekeeping, if you can all keep your microphones on mute, we will be asking for some, if you want to put any questions to any of our esteemed panelists, please can you use the text chat, and we'll have 2 Q&A sessions interspersed between the presentations, so that if you have some key questions, please put them through the chat, and then we can funnel them back into our, as I say, our venerable experts. So I'm gonna really kickstart today by asking each of our panelists to just step forward on screen and say a little bit about who they are and what they do. So in the first instance, I'd like to ask a great friend and colleague based in Los Angeles, Zubin Mowlavi, who's president of Vayner Commerce, to just give us a little bit of a heads up, Zubin, of what you do and who you are. Zubin Mowlavi, over to you. And don't mention Arsenal.
Good to see everybody. Lovely to be with you. Really enjoyed these sessions, workshops. We would love traveling over to London to have them in person in years past, but really pleased that we can actually do this together over Zoom. As Mark mentioned, I'm the president of Vayner Commerce. For 18 years, I had a tech agency in the e-commerce space called Lucid Fusion that was acquired by VaynerX, Gary Vaynerchuck's company, February of 2020. And so for the past 10 months, we've really been focused on building sustainable brands for various organizations, from startups to Fortune 500s, specifically around direct to consumer. And so what I'm looking forward to speaking with you about today are some of the direct to consumer opportunities that exist in the US, and frankly, many of the tips and tricks that will apply in any location around the world, but really a matter of how to build sustainable direct to consumer businesses. And really pleased to be with you again, and looking forward to chatting in a bit.
Thank you, Zubin. Appreciate that. Can I now ask Vinnie, Silveri, and Joe Stivala from Expeditors to step forward to the mic and just introduce yourselves to the audience.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you on the other side of the pond there. And thank you, Mark. My name is Vinnie Silveri, and I'm our customer retention and sales manager for our Expeditors branch here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm responsible for overseeing the business development efforts for our Arizona region specifically, but oversee the sales efforts of my teams, regardless of where that may take place, both here in the United States, the Americas, or globally. Been with our company for 10 years, really supporting our customers and future customers as it relates to their supply chains as a whole. Everything from the import process, the export process, compliance, customs brokerage, and domestic transportation, warehousing, and fulfillment, which is a portion that my counterpart Joey is going to take you through today, and really just helping customers find out where they want to have their businesses take place or support the movement of their goods globally. So we can get into a little more of that in just a minute, but thank you, Mark. And I'll hand it over to Joey.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a nice holiday week. I'm Joey Stavala. I am our distribution manager for Expeditors here in the Phoenix market. So I oversee the 5 warehouse and distribution centers that we operate here in the Phoenix area. We do a wide variety of business, including a significant amount of e-commerce shipments on a daily basis. And I also work closely with my counterparts across the network, namely in the US, as we set up operations and e-com type fulfillment programs across the country as well. So look forward to talking to you guys a little bit more in depth and answering any questions people may have. And thanks for having me this morning. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you. And if I can ask Ronny Chong from UPS to step forward to the video and the mic. Ronny.
Hey, good morning, Mark. Thank you for having me on the call today. And again, thank you for everyone across the sea in the United Kingdom and joining this and learning a little bit more about e-commerce. So a little bit about myself. I am the digital and channels marketing manager for the Southwest region of UPS. So kind of handling South California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And really my strategy, or at least my goal, is to drive and develop strategy for digital brand recognition and relevance in digital channels. So kind of relevant to what we're talking about today in e-commerce. And UPS really has four focuses on their strategic growth initiatives that are really focused on the people that are on the call today. One of them is e-commerce, and one of them is SMB, small to mid-sized businesses. And then the last one is growth markets, looking to export as well as import and grow our presence globally. So really looking forward to delivering some insights and some thought leadership to help your business expand in the US. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Ronnie. And if I can now call on Mitchell Allen, Senior Vice President, Greater Phoenix Economic Council, to step forward. Mitchell.
Thanks, Mark. Again, Mitchell Allen with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. I manage our business development team. I've got a few colleagues on the phone today, Mark Parator, as well as Bethany Bennick. The Greater Phoenix Economic Council is a not-for-profit economic development group that helps companies that are looking to expand or relocate their business into the Greater Phoenix area within Arizona, or the state of Arizona. We do take a consultative approach where we want to be able to work with companies and do what's in the best interest for them. And we do that by providing data and connectivity to resources within our market as you're looking to grow and scale. So I'll pass it briefly over to Mark and then maybe to Bethany.
Perfect. Thanks, Mitch. Mark, little feedback there, sorry. Mark Parator, VP of Business Development, as Mitch said, really focused on helping international companies as well as domestic companies scale their operation within our region and providing them data-driven opportunities to really support their business growth and scale opportunities. So I've had the great fortune of working closely with Mark and the team on these calls and really enjoy learning more about businesses and ways that we could really serve as a catalyst and a conduit to what it is that they may need. I'll next turn it over to my colleague, Bethany Bennick.
Hello, everybody. Bethany Bennick. I am the Senior Manager of Domestic and International Engagement. I support the efforts of our business development team, international attraction efforts, as well as our 170 private investor companies in 22 cities and towns that make up GPEC. So I'm here to help and consult in whatever role needed.
Bethany, thank you so much. And if I can now go across from coast to coast, as if by magic, and bring in Jan Mull from Fairfax County Economic Development Authority.
Thank you, Mark. That's quite a mouthful. Yes, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. As Mark indicated, my name is Jan Mull, and I'm the International Business Investment Director for the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Fairfax County is a relatively small area, part of the Northern Virginia, Mid-Atlantic region. And basically the services we are providing for companies who have an interest coming to the East Coast is very similar to what the Greater Phoenix Economic Council is offering. So basically a variety of soft landing services to make people aware here in the business area. And unique for Fairfax County on the county level is that we have overseas offices, and one of them is in London. And my colleague Ian Metcalf is in London at the moment and on this call as well. Ian, I'm not sure if you're available. Maybe you want to say a few words.
I'll say hello, but I think you've said everything that needs saying for the moment, Jan. I'll be around later.
Thank you, Ian. Back to you, Mark. And again, great to be with you guys today.
Thank you very much, Jan and Ian. I'd now like to call on Estelle Dingley. We're very grateful to have support from the Department for International Trade, and Estelle is based in Brighton. And Estelle, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mark. My name is Estelle Dingley, and I work for the Department for International Trade. So we're a government organization, department, I should say, but all the international trade advisors come from the private sector, and I think that's a key point about us. Is we've been there, we've done it. We also have a team of e-commerce advisors based at HQ in London, and we work with a team of commercial officers based in various embassies throughout the world, or business partners as well. So we're all geared up to help companies look to enter new markets and make a success out of it. Thank you, Mark.
Estelle, thank you so much. And if I can now, we've got some other very interesting advisors looking more on the operations and regulatory side. And I'd like to call on Mr. Thomas Thorelli from Chicago, just to explain a little bit about how important brand is.
Good afternoon, everybody. Tom Thorelli in Chicago. We're a small law firm at Thorelli Associates, working with small to medium-sized European companies doing business in the U.S. Those of you that do not work with the Department of International Trade, I encourage you to take contact with Estelle and DIT, because as she said, these are people that have done the done, or whatever it's called, and are highly qualified. We work with small to medium-sized companies, primarily helping them to navigate the legal system in the United States, minimizing their exposure to legal risk by taking advanced preventive action. And that's the best way and the cheapest way to use lawyers in the US. Usually the first step is protecting intellectual property, whether it be technology or what we're going to talk about a little bit later on today, trademarks, and then contracts and immigration and setting up companies and so forth. Look forward to speaking a little later on. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Tom. And Tom will be joined by his colleague, Antoine Guillot, who I don't think is on the call yet. But I know another expert on tax who is here, who is lurking under the banner of Avalara. Colin, can you just show yourself?
Hey everyone, hope you're doing really well. Good afternoon, good morning, and good night. My name is Colin Standbury. I'm an alliance manager here at Avalara Europe. And Oscar Wilde used to famously say that there are only two things in life that are for certain. Those are death and taxes. Well, we can't help you with the former, but we sure as heck can help you with the latter. Later on today, I'll explain a little bit about sales tax, its nuances, and why it's important to be ahead of the game when it comes to selling to the United States. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Ian.
Colin, thank you. I'm not sure about the moustache. That's the only thing I can say. If I can now welcome one of our great supporters from WorldFirst, James Reed, to just give us a little bit of an insight about how important smarter payments are. James, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and hi everyone. Good to be here. So as Mark mentioned, I'm James. I'm from WorldFirst. We are an international payments company, and we help UK SMEs to open bank accounts all around the world from where they can make and receive payments. So I'm looking forward to speaking a little bit more about how localizing payments and receipts can go a long way to removing a lot of those small unnecessary costs when you have customers who are paying in different currencies.
Thank you very much. So there's also another expert here, but I don't think they're on yet, for Safeguard Global. But I think it's about time we now started and got to the two meat and veg of this, which is I'm going to ask Zubin Mowlavi from Los Angeles to give us the lowdown on how we can do more D2C. Zubin.
Mark, everybody else, lovely to see you again. Very pleased to be with you, and I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for you, so I'm just going to talk. So hopefully I'm engaging enough so that you actually get some value out of this. So look, direct to consumer, we'll get to why direct to consumer versus Amazon versus other retailers, etc. As I mentioned before, I'm the president of Vayner Commerce, and just to give you a sense of our background. So we work with organizations that are small, medium, large. Venture-backed startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies that want to leverage direct-to-consumer and see the benefit and see the small brands that came out of nowhere that are doing 50 to 100 million in turnover that just sell directly to consumers. And so they want to understand how to do that. And they get the fact that it's not just another channel to sell on. It's actually a different type of business that requires different talent internally, externally, et cetera. With that being said, the US market's ripe for opportunity right now. I mean, certainly with what's occurred over the last 6 months with the pandemic, and we all know this, and we keep hearing this, and we keep realizing it in our own lives, which is the fact that innovation and consumer behavior has accelerated over the last 6 months. Things that would have happened in 3, 4, 5 years are happening now. And really the key as organizations and brands is to embrace this the same way consumers have. And to understand that these are trends and changes that aren't going anywhere. It's not just a matter of me telling you this. I'll give you some data points around it. But consumer behavior has led this shift, and brands have followed. Now, with that being said, I think what's really interesting, and we're talking about potential US expansion and the opportunities that exist in the US, but let's just take a look at what's happening in the UK. According to ONS, UK commerce is now 40%, UK e-commerce rather, is now 40% of retail revenue, excluding grocery. So just let that sink in for a moment. So 40% of revenue that's occurring in the UK right now is e-commerce revenue. And this is, I mean, isn't something that's just startling, that's just happened overnight. This has slowly been trending up, and certainly it's accelerated over the last 6 months. Now, when we take a look at global e-commerce, specifically according to ACI Worldwide, global e-commerce transactions increased by 19% in July 2020 compared to July 2019. And that might seem a lot to you, that might not seem a lot to you. What is for certain is that certain categories are increasing at a rapid rate. And what's further interesting now, when you take a look at it and you say, okay, well, is this a fad? Is this going to change? A couple of things that I want to mention to you. Numerator did a study 3 years preceding. So not 6 months, not 3 months, but if you take a look at the last 3 years, once online is tried in certain categories, significant category spend typically shifts permanently to online spend. So that tells us that consumer behavior isn't just something that is trendy or is just a fad for a period of time, specifically around e-commerce spending. Even for the last 3 years, when consumers purchased things like liquid hand soap, shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste, pain relievers, certain consumer packaged goods, they tended to stay purchasing online. So again, what it tells us is we need to embrace this consumer behavior. Perhaps all of us on this call are spending more online than we did before. And so we need to understand, what does that mean for a business? What does that mean for your organization? And how can you leverage that for US expansion? And to give you a sense of how ripe the market is from a US standpoint, 55% of Americans have purchased items online from websites and retailers that they had never shopped from before over the last few months, according to Where to Go. So it's not just a matter of, oh, I need to go to Amazon, or I need to, they're not going to know my brand, etc. US consumers are ready. They're purchasing from brands they've never heard of. And it's time that you embrace that, and time that you jump on the bandwagon. Now, what's interesting is Mark, Ian have been doing these events and have been helping organizations expand for the last, say, 4 or 5 years. And we were an early partner in those endeavors. And we were talking about this 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And it's interesting because in 2015, organizations in the UK were looking at us like, okay, this is interesting, but it's just so far out. 16 and 17, what ended up happening is they were coming to us and saying, this is really interesting. 4%, 5% of our online sales are in the US. We're not even advertising in the US. How can we actually increase that and accelerate that? And that's what we were guiding them on. And now what's happened is, I mean, it's just the floodgates have opened, if you will. So let's take a look at some consumer trends that really impact organizations and how you can jump on that, understand those consumer trends and adopt them within your organization. So one, delivery is becoming faster. So consumers are expecting faster delivery. There are a number of organizations and brands in the UK that are able to provide second-day, 2-day, 3-day delivery in the US, like Asos. And there are various ways to do it. When you're thinking about delivery, the key is, where are you housing your products? What are the products that are of high demand? What we typically recommend for organizations outside of the US is really to start to focus on what products are being purchased within the US, depending on, again, if you have a multi-SKU, if you have thousands of products, you have hundreds of products, you have a handful of products. It's really important to do some of that research up front, start selling your products, understand where there's purchase intent. And then if you're thinking about actually housing those products in the US, finding a logistics provider in the US, doing it based on the data that you have around what products are actually selling in the US versus bringing all of your stock over. Secondly, mobile shopping is taking over website shopping. So a significant percentage of consumers are buying on mobile. So it's really important that you mobile optimize your experience and you don't think about mobile as a secondary channel. Now, what's interesting is over the course of the last, again, 5-6 years, mobile traffic started increasing in 15, 16, where it was, for most consumer brands, 50 to 60% of their traffic was mobile. And then it went 60, 70, 70, 80, et cetera. But there was always a lag in transactions. So mobile traffic was high, but conversion rates were significantly low. Part of it was due to consumer behavior. The other part was most of these sites were just horrible from a conversion standpoint. They weren't optimized for mobile. They weren't even created for mobile. And so a consumer would go in their spare time when they're not in front of their computer, browse, search, discover, if you will. And then when it came to purchase, they went to the desktop because it was just too difficult to transact on mobile. So it's really important that you get your mobile experience down. A couple of other things: social commerce, Facebook and Instagram Shop, which were unveiled this year, are incredibly critical to certain sectors and certain segments. What's great about them is in years past, all of these channels were disparate channels. So you had to handle fulfillment, et cetera. You'd have to go get your orders from here, get your orders from there, et cetera. What's great about Facebook and Instagram Shop is they now integrate with Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, so on and so forth, so that you can actually sell on those channels, but fulfill through your normal means. So you have your Shopify site, you have your .com, you're transacting that way. Now you can set a subset of your products on Facebook and Instagram Shop. And when somebody purchases, it's not like you have to go handle those any differently than what you do on your normal site. And it's really important to start testing that as well. Subscription-based e-commerce is yet another massive opportunity for certain brands. And it's really important on a number of reasons. One, subscription, I mean, it goes without saying that from a business standpoint, having recurring revenue is critical. But let's think about it from the consumer standpoint. So a consumer comes to your site, they purchase from you once. What's occurred over the last, again, 4 or 5 years is a lot of brands that were able to leverage Facebook and Instagram and Google 4 or 5 years ago were able to do so because there weren't as many brands on there. And so the cost of acquisition, the return on ad spend was optimal for them. The cost of acquisition was low, their return on ad spend was high. There weren't a lot of brands on there. Now, with how easy Facebook's made it, how easy Shopify's made it, et cetera, competition's gone up. And as a result, the cost to be on those channels has gone up. And so for many organizations, you can't just simply try to target customers that buy from you once, because you're going to spend the same amount to try to acquire the customer as it is to sell your product. And so it's really important to start to think about lifetime value, and not think about it, but actually really focusing on lifetime value and understand, how do you get somebody, you spend all this time, effort, work, and money to get somebody to buy from your site once. How do you make sure that they continually buy? So subscription is another way of doing that. Understanding, is there a market for subscription for your product, and testing various things with that. And then ultimately personalization, and personalization being really the new segmentation. There aren't a lot of brands that do personalization well. There's still a lot of white space with personalization, but it's really important to understand that one of the key benefits to direct to consumer is that you control the narrative with your customer. You have that relationship with your customer, not somebody else. And we'll get to why that's important in a little bit. But with that being said, the more you're able to segment these customers and understand that, look, I've got 8 cohorts that visit my site. Yes, primarily I sell to women that are 34 to 55, right? But I'm getting men to buy, and they're buying for their wives. I'm getting younger women to buy, so on and so forth, all these different cohorts. You don't want to send everybody to the same homepage. You don't want to send them to the same experience. It doesn't make sense. It's like walking into a retail store and the person that greets you, you walk into Zara, for example, and imagine the person that greets you. You're a man. It's clear that you want to buy for yourself. And the person that greets you at Zara takes you to the women's section. It doesn't make sense, right? That doesn't happen in real life. Why should it happen online? So you got to make sure that you're starting to invest in that. Now, with that being said, there are priorities along this. You can't do that when you have no traffic in the US, you have no insight, et cetera. But these are things to think about as you're expanding. Again, whether you're doing it specifically in the UK and starting to build your direct consumer business and then expand to a different market, or you're looking to expand to begin with. Now, in terms of, again, I mentioned direct to consumer, and let's kind of lean into that for a moment. What we get asked quite often from our clients is, well, you know, we understand that, yeah, .com is great. We want to have access to the consumer, so on and so forth. But why not Amazon? Why don't we start with Amazon? Because Amazon has a built-in audience. And if we go to that built-in audience, our cost of acquisition is going to be lower, so on and so forth. Now, I'm not here to tell you that Amazon isn't a viable business or a viable channel for many organizations. However, the key and what we fundamentally believe is that organizations, brands that are closer to the consumer will ultimately win. Reason being, look at what's happening in retail. Amazon is just another version of retail. It's just online retail. It's e-retail, if you will. And when somebody purchases your products on Amazon, you don't know who they are. Ultimately, they purchase this from you, they purchase this, so on and so forth. You just know the volume of sales and the number of customers you have. The same way that if you were to sell in Tesco's, you don't know who that consumer is. And so your ability to be able to spend the money and get that consumer and build a relationship with them, and then ultimately leverage retention channels like email and SMS is impossible, right? So the key is not to necessarily think about these channels as one or the other, but to have a multi-channel strategy and understand that, yes, perhaps it makes sense for you to sell on Amazon for a period of time or indefinitely, but do not lose sight of the fact that your effort and your money should be going towards your own .com, because that is your ability to maintain a relationship with establish a relationship and maintain one with a consumer directly. And for those of you that haven't run retention campaigns, email, text, etc., you'd be surprised at the volume of revenue that our clients and in general that brands have when they have an effective email and SMS strategy. And when you think about it, they've acquired the customer, it's their customer, and now they're sending weekly emails. I'm sure you get these weekly emails as well. Many of them are annoying to you. Like, why am I continually getting ads? But they work. The reason why they send them is they work. And if you can imagine, the return on investment there is significant because you've already paid for that customer once, and now you have a relationship. Now, in terms of strategies, how to do it effectively, et cetera, feel free to reach out to us. We'll give you some tips around that. But I just want to emphasize the fact that this is a long game and isn't about short-term results. Like, okay, let me just start to sell a few products in the US and see if it works. You can do that and you may or may not be successful, but this is an actual designated channel that has proven to be successful. And it just requires time, effort, money, spent the right way in the right priority order for you to be successful. Now, speaking of success, who does it well? So a couple of brands come to mind in the UK that have done incredibly well, not only in the UK market, but as they've expanded outside of the UK into Europe and US and Asia. One, Asos. So Asos, I'm sure we've all heard of them. What are the few things that makes Asos successful? And if you think about, there was a recent tweet that I sent out around where do people buy and why? And my Twitter followers are all over, but primarily in the US. And you'd be surprised at the percentage of individuals that actually responded ASOS. And the reason they responded ASOS is because of the vast amount of SKU that they have, the merchandising. So if somebody's going online and they want to buy basics or this, that, the other, you know ASOS is going to have them. Two, fast shipping. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, from many locations in the US and around the world, you get it within 2-3 days, which is just incredible to think about, that you can order something from the UK, it gets shipped from there in 2-3 days. Now they've also set up, from what I understand, logistics and shipping in the US for certain priority items. But again, it's about intelligence. What items are getting purchased? Which ones do we want here? And then returns. Your ability to be able to return a product to ASOS is incredible. You can purchase, and what many people do, I mean, this is what I do as well. I'll go online because it's very unclear. Like some of the size fitting and stuff is different. A medium or a large isn't necessarily medium and large across all there, isn't the same size. And so you end up buying 10 items. You try them on, you return the 8 that you don't want, you immediately get your money back. Now, it's not just a matter of us knowing that that exists, but making it abundantly clear to the consumer that comes to your site the first time about all of these features that you have. Because what you're doing is you're lowering the barrier of entry, you're giving them an incentive to purchase, and anything that they have on the back of their minds, like, this is great and all, but what if it doesn't fit? What if this doesn't happen? Be overt, be transparent with your consumer, explain it to them. Another one, Gymshark. Gymshark has done incredibly well. I mentioned Gymshark when we had one of these events last time. I believe it was in June or July of this year. And since then, Gymshark received their next round of funding that valued Gymshark, put their value at over £1 billion. A small brand that started, not small anymore, but a brand that started out of Ben Davis's home, where he was actually sewing these clothing to the size that it is now, has everything to do with international expansion. They were fantastic at building their brand on influencers. Influencers are great, not for every brand. If you're doing a commoditized product, if you're doing drop shipping, et cetera, you don't have the margins to do influencers. But for pretty much every other brand, if it's your product, influencers are fantastic. And I think long gone are the days where you're going to go spend, find somebody that has several million followers and put all your eggs in one basket. Micro-influencers are incredibly effective. I would highly recommend that you put together a media plan where you're going to spend money on Facebook, Google, Instagram, and take part of that, put it against influencers, and make sure that you're able to, with whatever budget you have, at least test 10 different influencers, because you never know where you're going to get traction. But they did incredibly well with influencers, as they still do. They've got a great product and great customer service. So you can contact them anytime, ask them questions, etc. Again, think about retail experiences that are incredibly effective, what works for you when you go in, how they greet you, how they answer your questions, etc. Adapt that and build it on to what you're doing on your direct to consumer. So let's talk about a few tips. One, listen, and then keep listening. So don't assume you know what's best for your brand. Once you launch, once you implement Google Analytics, etc., try to absorb the data that matters. Now, if you don't know what data matters, there are a lot of articles online. We can link you to some as well. They give you a sense of what's occurred over the last, again, 5 years, and I keep mentioning 5 years because there's been a massive growth in e-commerce and platforms and whatnot, is the prevalence of data. There is a ton of data, but the problem with data is that 95% of it is noise that is meaningless, that you'll waste your time looking at. Think about Tesla, autonomous vehicle. When we drive as human beings, we're looking around, we're looking at the trees, the sky, this, that, the other. We know innately what signals to pay attention to when we're driving. When the Tesla vehicle is driving, it hones in on only those 5-10 things that matter when you're driving. It puts aside the noise and it only focuses on those things. That's the way to operate if you're going to be successful in any online business, frankly, where there's a ton of noise. You focus on those key performance indicators that really matter, the ones that you're monitoring week over week, month over month, that will ultimately present business outcomes for you, not the things that don't. Something that's really interesting, I just wanted to share with you in terms of a question that we get often is, I'm doing really well. I get people to my site, I get them to a cart, and they abandon. Why are they abandoning? Well, according to social media today, here are the top 3 reasons why individuals abandon. And I think they're all relevant to this audience. And again, back to the overall kind of topic or theme, if you will, of transparency. 1, shipping tax and or other extra costs were too high. So we understand that if you're shipping from the UK, those sorts of things are going to be high. But the critical thing is explaining to consumers what those prices are and being transparent with them. And then doing that, even if you can, prior to cart, giving them the ability to understand those things so that when they get to cart, they're not being surprised by anything. 2, the website wanted me to create an account. I think it goes without saying, but a lot of the modern platforms, Shopify, et cetera, give you the option to create an account, but they don't force you. Back in the day, even when we were building Magento sites in 2009, 10, 11, the theme was get everyone to sign up for an account, because if they sign up for an account, then for some reason we thought they would purchase more. But the reality is all you really need is their email address or their mobile phone number to be able to contact them. You don't need them to set up for an account. And then the third one is too long or complicated of a checkout process. So again, if you leverage something like a Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, et cetera, you're going to have optimized checkout. And so you don't have to worry about those things. A couple other things, a little more conversation is critical. Now, what do I mean by that? Chatbots. Chatbots, you've seen them on sites, they come up. A few years ago, brands were using them as just something there as a reactive measure. Somebody was stuck, they would come and they would message somebody and get response. Proactive chatbots are critical. Being able to build them so someone's on your site, they're looking at 2 products, the chatbot knows, responds to them, and initiates conversation is really critical. A study by Marketing Power revealed that customers who have used live chat are 3 times more likely to buy products than those that don't. So be proactive about that. One thing, if you have a retail experience that I think is a fantastic idea, if you have one, leverage your retail staff now that retail traffic is lower to actually be able to communicate with people online. Say you've got a beauty brand, or you've got a product that is more of a consultative purchase. Allow consumers online to be able to book a 10-minute, 15-minute free consultation, or do a live chat right on your site, or jump to Zoom, whatever it is. But allow the consumer to actually connect with the retail staff that can help them in their purchase decision. 3, focus on the long term, as I mentioned. Long gone are the days of, and for certain categories, you could still find arbitrage where you're spending less on the consumer than the consumer spending on your products. But really the key is lifetime value. The key is to think about, as you're building your .com, that this is not a short-term channel. This is a long-term strategy. How do I focus on my modeling, my business modeling, not around a single purchase, but around lifetime value, about annual purchases, customer growth, retention, so on and so forth. And then leverage the tools that are out there for you. Shopify, Facebook and Instagram, Google Shopping. There's a solution out of Germany called e-marketing that's fantastic. You implement it, it'll tell you what, based on your products, what the price point is for competition in different markets, what you can charge, so on and so forth. And I think those things are really important to be able to leverage. They're available to you. So what willingness do you have to have? What makes the difference? One, customer service. It's really important to have customer service that's available to consumers in a different market. Two, making that consumer connection and not just throwing your products on a site and hoping that somebody purchases. Digital made us closer. Consumer expectations and behavior have increased. Make sure that you're meeting those expectations. For merchandising, make sure that you're merchandising appropriate to a market. Do a little bit of testing. Once you get some results, understand that if you have 100 products, it's perhaps only 10 that a certain cohort is interested in a certain market. Prioritize those 10. And then make sure that you are, again, leveraging the tools that are out there for you. And then when you're thinking about how to evaluate the US market, one, are you currently running advertising? If you are, split some of that advertising in the US, put some of the media in the US, and see what kind of sales you get. Be transparent that it may take a week, 2 weeks for that product to ship to the US, but it's fine. Run some tests, see what kind of experience you're getting. Again, don't see this as a short-term play. Really think about this as a long-term intention and how much money you're putting behind it so that you have not success that you're looking for in 3 months, but you're actually modeling this out for at least 6 to 12 months in market. And then find a trusted partner to help you, whether that partner is an individual, depending on the size of your organization, or it's an agency. Find someone that can help you, because ultimately they should be able to help you mitigate certain challenges that have occurred and then help you accelerate that growth. In conclusion, I really want to reemphasize the fact that the market has changed. Retail is not retail that we knew about it 6 months ago. And when we're thinking about this new normal isn't going to be much different than what we're seeing right now. E-commerce traction is going to continue. Don't forget the fact that 55% of Americans have purchased items online from sites and brands they'd never heard of before. That's not going to stop. They're going to continually do that. And it's really important, if you're considering expanding to the US, that you do so sooner rather than later. Not to say there isn't going to be opportunity a year, 2 years, 3 years, but consumers are ripe right now for new brands. And if you're able to position your products appropriately, the sooner the better. And again, I think that your willingness to invest time and resources in planning and deployment, I mentioned at the onset of this, many brands that we work with, the larger brands come in and they say, we just want to go direct to consumer. Great, you want to do it. It's not just a matter of starting to sell on that channel. It's about what talent do I have internally to support that channel as it grows? What external partners do I need? Do I have the right logistics partners, supply chain partners, et cetera, to be able to expand? All of that being said, they're massive opportunities for you. I wish you the best of luck. I hope that you expand. I hope that you start to test and iterate, because the key to the game really is testing and iterating and not waiting for everything to be ready to start selling. But as Mark mentioned, we're here to help you. Whatever we can do. If you'd like to have further conversations with us, let us know. But know that the market's ripe, and wish you the best of luck in your expansion.
Zubin, thank you. Thank you very much. And Zubin, we're doing some Q&As at the end of this session, so stick around and we can put some questions back to Zubin. Thank you so much. Really invaluable information and strategic advice there. And I'd like to kind of join that up now to what will have to happen in order to get all these things delivered successfully to those direct end users, and ask both Vinnie and Joe from Expeditors to give us your insight about how the world and the US has changed in terms of deliveries and distributions and logistics.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And Zubin, that was really great, insightful information, and really, pairs well with, what we've seen on the supply chain side over the past 6 months, 8 months, really beginning with Chinese New Year, and really trickling into where we are today. That nobody ever thought that they were going to be in this situation, but what we've really experienced, and from the Expeditors side of our business, is we're a global Fortune 500 supply chain partner, meaning full service logistics, ocean and air import services, export services, customs services, fulfillment, and domestic transportation, as I mentioned as well. And really what our global customers have come to us with, and if they weren't already set up with a fulfillment strategy, then they were coming to us immediately to leverage our global footprint to help them with that side of their business. And customers and this is happening in every major geography, had to really take a look at where their products were coming from, because there was a significant delay when China shut down, and getting goods out of that region. And then you saw those shutdowns kind of trickle into other geographies. Customers who were vertically integrated and who had alternate supply chain sources were the ones that were more successful. But really the understanding of how goods needed to be expedited when products started being manufactured again became the next challenge. And then where was that product going to go when the US shutdowns were occurring? There was warehousing and distribution centers that were shut down, and we had to reroute a lot of cargo. So all that being said, e-commerce and fulfillment, the word supply chain made it into the boardroom in a bigger way than it ever had before. And the executives of these organizations were saying, what is our strategy to be sustainable, to get our orders out the door, to connect with our customers? And if you didn't have an e-commerce strategy, you sure as heck wanted to get one in place. So one of the things that we support our customers with, and we continually do this on a very consultative, take a consultative approach as we approach our customers that need our support today, or our new customers that we're looking to do business with in a different fashion, is really talking about their business. We want to understand their product. We want to understand their business, and a lot of that. I'm sitting in Phoenix, Arizona. I've got 70 counterparts here in the United States, and another 185 globally. Joey mentioned earlier in the call, he's got 5 locations just here in Arizona that he oversees. So from a worldwide footprint, we're over 350 facilities that we can do managed services for our customers for. So understanding our customer, our potential customer, and where they're going to do their business, and what their product is made up of, helps us get a better idea as to where we fit in, and what obstacles and hurdles we can help them avoid. Okay, so really it starts with sourcing. If you're going to have an e-commerce strategy or a fulfillment strategy, it really starts with sourcing. And when I say sourcing, it's understanding the partner that you're going to have from a manufacturing side. The supplier relationship is key. And in this challenging time, we've understood it's more key than it ever has been. Visibility to the manufacturing, visibility to the fulfillment cycle is paramount. We manage something for a lot of large companies out there that you guys all know and love and buy from every day, and we provide what's called order management services. So order management services are visibility at the order level, at the SKU level, which helps you make better decisions, helps you manage your suppliers better, and helps you reduce, ultimately, hopefully reduce your freight costs by moving as much of that product via ocean, which we all, if you're not familiar, 90% of global trade occurs, is transported via ocean. It's a lower cost method. So understanding what that looks like from your supplier relationship is kind of the first step. And that visibility to that order process is key. If you don't have it, you could be behind the 8 ball early on. As well as identifying alternate sources for products should your current supplier not be able to meet demand. Talking about inventory strategies as well. We learn about what our customer stocking strategy is going to be. Are they going to run very lean? Inventory on hand is something that eats up cash flow. And are you going to really try and be lean? and really manage it in a very just-in-time method, or are you going to stock to order and really have goods on hand that you can fulfill at any given time, which allows you to move larger quantities of these items? That's where we ask customers around the makeup of their product. Is it friendly to air freight, right? Is it something that you can move via air if you need something quicker, versus just having to be at the mercy of moving something via ocean because it's just way too expensive to move via air? Talking about seasonality of products, do you have a product that is seasonal? Are you going to have ebbs and flows of different types of inventory? Those are things that are my counterpart Joey and the rest of our group around the US is, you know, hey, are we working with a ski customer that's not going to have business for 50% of the year? Or are we working with a surfboard company, you know, that's going to only have business 50% of the year, given the geography, right? We want to understand what your country of origin strategy is and where you're doing business, helping you identify some of those challenges from a customs perspective while you get goods into the United States. That's a major issue for a lot of companies when they realize duty and tax implications, depending on where those goods are sourced. We also, you know, talk a lot in the early phases. If we get the opportunity, if you've already made your decision, then that's okay, but we help you block and tackle. But those shipping methods, you know, helping you maximize the product makeup of a container, okay? And if through those order management services that we offer, if you're sourcing goods from multiple suppliers in a region, with whether it's Asia, whether it could be exported out of the United States, what have you, it doesn't matter. We can help take advantage of consolidation options. So if one supplier is producing what would not typically fill a full container, and you've got another supplier close in that given geography, Expeditors, with our global reach, we have the ability to consolidate goods into what is the container that's made up of only Expeditors customers freight. We take full container load shipments and that are made up of what would typically be a less than container load shipment. And you'd have a lot of visibility to that through the platforms that we offer. Really, as you get further down into the supply chain and the goods start to hit the United States or whatever region you're going to fulfill out of, we like to understand and help educate our customers and talk about speed to market. Is that important? Zubin mentioned, you know, shipping methods and 2-day shipping, 1-day shipping, what have you. Well, Amazon does that by putting DCs. It gets the inventory close to you. They have ways that are smart to know what they can get you in one day versus it's just going to be an extended transit. That all occurs based on placing goods close to their customers. If we have data, we can help you with center of gravity analysis. We can help you with inventory placement. We can help you with all of those things to help you get your product to your customer faster. The other big question, I think this should have been at the very beginning of my discussion, but are you going to outsource versus handle this yourself? Okay. Do you want to have a variable cost fulfillment model by using a fulfillment partner such as us? That's kind of what we do, and Joey can allude to that in a little bit. But you know, really understanding what your cost structure is going to be to get your product out the door is something to consider, and that's something, you know, our customers end up taking the in-source model and outsourcing it based on the need to reduce overhead within their own P&Ls. One key thing that we run into a lot of challenges with, and I think it's very important to consider when you're looking to launch a product or get a product to your customer, especially in an e-commerce manner. I mentioned it early on about labeling and working with your supplier. How is that product made up? Is it going to be shelf ready? Is it going to have labeling that's going to support your fulfillment partners, you know, WMS systems, warehouse management systems that they have in place? Is very key when having those discussions with your supplier. But at the ERP level, what system are you using internally? And does that system integrate with what would be a fulfillment partner such as us? We would feed information back and forth. We could feed retrieve order information, send order information back, visibility type stuff. But really at the order level, how are you going to communicate with the people that are fulfilling the orders and getting those goods out the door for you? That's an important thing that we talk about with our new customers that we're engaging with. We try to have that conversation early on to help our folks such as Joey and the rest of his counterparts have a better idea of how we're going to work with that customer to fulfill the orders. I'll kind of end and I'll hand it over to Joey, but what I will say is e-commerce distribution and domestic movement of goods within a given geography, the United States specifically, has exploded, obviously, just due to the fact that U.S. consumers need to have product and needed things in a bigger way and in a different way than they ever had. We don't see this trend changing. It's been a very challenging market out there as it relates to air and ocean freight. We leverage our relationships and our partnerships with the key steamship lines and airlines, as well as trucking partners throughout any given geography, to really do the best that we can for our customers. From a movement and management perspective, we Expeditors moved about 3 million containers. That's ones that we moved for our customers and then managed on their behalf, whether it's forwarding or order management services. And then we're the largest, from via IATA's reference, largest air carrier outside of the asset-based companies. Trans-Pacific, which is the largest trade lane, obviously, that we all know. So we're standing by to help, and really, we don't say that to brag, but just really we want to make sure that everybody knows that our global reach is there. So I'll hand it over to Joey to speak about fulfillment strategies and what our distribution teams are seeing and doing right now. And of course, we're standing by to support with any questions that you may have whatsoever. So thank you for the time. And while I have the chance to say it, hope everybody's safe and healthy, and hope everybody has a great holiday on the horizon for them, regardless if it may be, in front of someone or in front of your computer screen, seeing your family. So hope this all passes us soon. But thank you for the time, Mark. Really appreciate it. And I'll hand it over to Joey.
Thanks, Vinny. I'll try to keep this relatively brief, guys, so we can continue to move forward. But certainly a timely discussion today for a lot of us in the US. This is Thanksgiving week. For those of us in the e-com fulfillment game, this is gearing up for Cyber Monday week. So certainly very heavy e-com shipping expected within the US here in the next 7 days. Kind of a guessing game. A lot of people think we might see record shipments. I believe that will be the case, but obviously the tricky thing with e-com is you never really know what you're walking into until you walk in that day. Maybe 1,000 orders and maybe 10,000 orders. And that's kind of the way it works. So I just wanted to touch on a couple points. Vinny mentioned some of this, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit. So obviously e-com has exploded, A, over the last few years, and B, even more significantly since the whole COVID situation kind of struck us earlier this year. Just to put some numbers, here in Phoenix, my e-com volume is up about 60% since the middle of March. And that's with existing customers. So that's not even taking into account new business that we went out and brought into Phoenix. So it's certainly been a challenge. It's been an exciting challenge, but I can speak firsthand to the way that consumers have changed their consumption and buying options, and kind of the back end to make that work operationally and get product out the door. On the flip side, we're also receiving a record number of requests for people looking to set up shops with some sort of new e-commerce program, either something they previously did in-house and are now looking to outsource, or maybe just a new sales channel that a company is looking to expand upon. So I think the first question that we see from a lot of our customers is, do I do this in-house, or do I outsource to logistics third-party distribution provider? And there's not a right and there's not a wrong answer. For certain companies, it may make sense to do the work in-house, maybe complexity, maybe simply having control of that operation, maybe just tribal knowledge that makes sense. But on the flip side, like Vinny mentioned, for those looking for a variable cost model, it may make sense to outsource those fulfillment and distribution operations. And that's where a company like us could come into play. So Vinny mentioned a little bit, but one of the first things that we look at is center of gravity. So what makes sense and where should we set up a distribution operation? So A, first of all, it's cost efficient. And B, you can operate and meet all your metrics and all your deliveries in a timely manner. So there's a lot to consider here. I mean, obviously certain markets, the real estate market has gotten incredibly expensive, specifically on the West Coast, LA, Seattle, Portland, working the way north to south. So customers need to make a decision, does it make sense to be in a high rent district, or is the product I'm fulfilling, can it be done somewhere else that's maybe a little bit more cost efficient? Second key thing to look at is labor. Labor in the market that you're looking to operate your distribution or fulfillment center or outsource your distribution and fulfillment center. The thing about e-commerce is while there is new technology and new WMS that make us more efficient and allow us to ship product quicker with fewer bodies, it can still become very labor intense in a hurry. It takes people to pick, pack, and ship orders. And while COVID has, increased the demand for e-commerce shipping, it has also taken a major dent on the workforce. So it's harder and harder to find bodies to come in and work in a distribution center type operation. And market by market, that can be different. There's certainly more struggles in some markets than others. That's certainly something that needs to be considered when you're trying to determine where to set up shop. And then the third thing is that flow of data, kind of like Vinnie mentioned. So, as a company, we are very familiar with integrating with our customers' ERP systems, whether that's through EDI hooks or API, but it's key that data flows in a timely manner and an accurate manner back and forth from us in the fulfillment center to our customers' ERP system so that both systems are in sync and that everything operates as it should. It's an exciting time. It's a challenging time right now. We don't see this e-commerce boom going away anytime soon. If anything, it's going to continue to explode. One last thing that I will mention is that one of the more common trends, especially for maybe more mature companies or companies with a lot of volume shipping within the US, is the expansion beyond one DC within the US. So Zubin mentioned that, Amazon has kind of set the precedent of delivering within 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. The US is a big company or a big country, right? It takes a significant time to get from one end to the other. So what's become more and more popular is this 2DC or 3DC or 4DC approach so that you can space your inventory out strategically across the US and still allow to deliver to your customer base within 1 to 2 business days, no matter where that customer resides within the country. So there's a lot to consider. I know I just kind of gave more thoughts than facts here, but that's kind of the way the market is right now. We are evolving month after month. Volumes are increasing month after month. It'll be very interesting to see what volume looks like here in the next 7 days with, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and all the holiday shopping. And then obviously going into 2021, like I mentioned, so many companies, small, medium, large, have reached out to us looking for ways to kind of expand their e-commerce presence. And, companies are really taking a really hard look at where should I set up my distribution center? What makes sense not only for our company today, but down the road. And, some very big brands and some very big companies that we've worked with for years, maybe have had one DC in Seattle or New York or Chicago, and they're now exploring all options. They're considering all regions within the US. So just because companies did something one way in the past does not mean that's what makes sense for the future. So, I just expect more fluidity, more changes, and going to be an exciting time. It's certainly a challenging time here in the upcoming months.
That's great. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Vinnie. And of course, this leads us beautifully onto the last mile and Ronny Chong from UPS. Do you want to kind of add some sagacity to all of this, Ronny?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's so synergy that everyone's insights that they're sharing kind of just boils down perfectly down to the final mile. So I'll give a little bit of insight and some takeaways for that. But before I start, I want to drop a little bit about UPS and who we are overall and globally. But we are one of the largest package delivery companies in the world. We deliver about 5.5 billion packages per year. It's a whole lot of packages, right? We offer a broad range of integrated logistics solutions from small package movements to freight movements, from forwarding to ocean, and our contract logistics services where we dabble in distribution and warehouse as well. So that's kind of a complete one-stop shop that we offer. We cover about 220 countries and territories around the world. And we have about a little over 500,000 employees. really embracing our new purpose statement that we have redefined with our new CEO, Carol Tomei, and it is moving the world forward by delivering what matters. And what also matters is the final mile delivery, specifically the final mile delivery experience. That is one of the most critical components in today's world. Zubin mentioned it a lot. Vinnie talked about it a lot, which is just the customer expectation has dynamically changed. So what's really interesting about the final mile experience is that traditionally we think it starts when the package leaves the facility or the distribution location. But as a matter of fact, the final mile delivery experience actually begins a lot earlier than you actually think. It's not, like I said, when it leaves the facility, but it's actually happening when the customer is in the research phase of what we call the consumer path to purchase or the online journey. So to give you an example, based on some of our studies, Pulse of the Online Shopper, 27% of online shoppers will abandon cart due to a long delivery time. So as they go in, they select their product and they see something that doesn't fit time in transit mindset that they have or expectation they have, they'll abandon cart. Also, 54% of consumers say they will take a look at the customer's or a vendor's return policy before making an online purchase. I know Zubin mentioned that as well, right? Returns experience is a critical component in the overall journey of a customer, especially in the final mile delivery experience. So UPS is really, you heard me just reference one of our studies, and UPS has actually been conducting a study, commissioned third party. It's called the Pulse of the Online Shopper. We have been doing it since 2012. So for the past 7 years, we have gone out and surveying online consumers across the world to really identify these insights and to be thought leaders to share with our SMB customers to really help them accelerate and to really compete in the market from an e-commerce digital perspective. So it's really, really great to see that. And the study really kind of focuses on the final mile delivery and other really relevant supply chain elements that have been very crucial to the consumer experience. And so, like I said, UPS has taken a very broad perspective approach to this. And again, we're trying to help our retail customers compete, grow, and thrive in today's reality. And what's today's reality? It's the keyword that a lot of people have been saying. It's COVID-19, right? The world of pandemic. And what I personally think, based on our studies, is that I don't think our consumers have changed dramatically. What has happened is things have heightened. Their experiences and their demands and expectations have heightened tenfold. And so a lot of the things that we talk about in our findings in our studies, they're even more relevant to our customers because, one, there is a ton of new consumers that are buying online. Again, Zubin mentioned it as well. Folks that have never shopped online or folks that have never shopped a certain brand are now buying and exploring, as well as the current shoppers that were pretty savvy online and buying online today are buying even more due to the pandemic. And so really they're hyper-focused on their experience, how personal the experience is from a final mile delivery experience. And so what that opportunity has really brewed is a high concentration of competitors, right? Just like you folks on the call here today, the US market from an e-commerce perspective is a very lucrative market. I think it's the second largest based on a Spotify study in 2019. So there's a lot of money to be made here, right? And so when you think about a saturated market with a lot of competitors trying to come in and get their piece of the pie, the question is how do I create a competitive advantage, right? And so really the customer experience is the secret sauce. I know it sounds simple, it really isn't. It's really trying to understand those customers, but the customer experience is the critical secret sauce to winning and creating that competitive advantage. Based on our study, 89% of our surveyed online shoppers would stop purchasing or purchase a lot less from a vendor due to a bad experience. So that's very powerful, 89% of folks, right? And so successful companies, they have to learn to balance customer experience with cost and efficiency. And that's a juggling act that gets tough. And so a lot of SMBs, they're small businesses, right? So they don't have the bandwidth or the resources to do that. And you'll even find there are larger enterprise businesses that are out there that just can't do it alone. And this is where companies like UPS come into play. We're here to help you out. And UPS has really diversified our portfolio of offerings. We offer a wide range of logistics services that, like I mentioned before, the things that we're known for, right? Shipping, forwarding, warehouse distribution. However, we have stepped into the market of delivering technology solutions, as well as marketing and digital marketing solutions to really help drive sales and growth for our customers in the US and globally as well, right? And so again, there's so much that I can talk to you about with UPS and how we've kind of transformed our business and how we can help our customers in so many verticals within a business, not just the traditional logistics, right? And delivering a package. But what I'll do today for the essence of time is really just leave you with some actionable insights that you can help you build your US e-commerce strategy and specifically focus on the last mile perspective. So based on our studies, right? So the ComScore studies, we found that there are actually 4 main guideposts for creating a best-in-class experience from a final mile delivery experience. And that is convenience, choice, control, and transparency. And really over the last 7 years, this has evolved as suggestions to our retailers at the very beginning to how to best serve our customers. But today it is a standard of expectations. So if you think about what qualifies as a good experience, well, in my eyes, it's when a vendor does what I think I should deserve, right? What I expect. And so that's what we call a good experience. And so if you think about it, today it's the standard to deliver convenience, choice, control, and transparency from a final mile delivery experience, right? And so before we even talk about those 4 guideposts, you never want to put the cart before the horse, right? The first thing is solidifying the right partners that are going to help you execute fast final mile deliveries and reliable final mile delivery services, right? So let's talk about those buckets before we move into those 4 main guideposts, right? So the first one is speed. So speed is pretty obvious. It is the hottest commodity right now. It is something that's critical to our customers when they buy. And as a matter of fact, we understood it was so important that UPS actually just completed a multi-million-dollar network enhancement of our ground services, speeding up our time in transit in the US. We're doing this also by extending our service days and including an extra day in the week, offering 6 complete days of our full portfolio of services, and offering our SurePost, which is our USPS comparative solution in the US on Sunday deliveries. So really these enhancements are allowing UPS to really deliver 90% of our US volume in 3 days or less and over the weekend. You heard Zubin talk about it, right? Consumers expect 2 to 3 day shipping expectations, and it was really created by the Amazon effect, right? And it's kind of a standard norm. But again, why is speed important to you as a vendor? It's because your customers care. Based on an Avanos research study, 62% of online shoppers said speed of delivery is the single most important factor defining a positive retail experience. And 54% of those consumers prefer 2 to 3 day shipping. Now, UPS offers consultative services to help you identify where to possibly plant your distribution location. And we even go as far as offering a distribution solution that I call the Uber of fulfillment services, and it's called our Where to Go services, and it's really targeting our SMB customers. Really quick setup. Like I said, an Uber of 3PL, we can help identify multiple locations to place your distribution locations to take advantage of our speed enhancements and to meet the customer's expectations of 2 to 3 delivery times. So really our goal is to help optimize the speed of your supply chain and really carve out that competitive advantage for yourself. The second bucket is reliability. That's pretty straightforward. You need a reliable final mile delivery carrier. The best thing I can share with you is to take a look at the pandemic this last 7 months. During the pandemic, carriers like UPS and my other competitors in my market have seen really unprecedented volume, right? It's out of the roof, it's huge. And so our investments in our network and our facilities have really helped us deal with the impact of the pandemic volume that's been created. And so we've become the industry leader in reliability and on-time delivery. So based on a ship matrix report for the month of April and May, August and October, we led in our industry on reliability and on-time delivery in the United States. So right off the bat, making sure you get with a partner that can deliver speed and reliability is a critical component to your last mile experience. So let's move on to those guideposts. So the first one we talked about was convenience, right? And convenience is more of the overarching guidepost. Everything kind of rolls up under there, and it's kind of like the glue or the connectivity between the other guideposts, right? And so what big insight you should pull from the word convenience is it means something different for every customer. Zubin talked about it as well in his insight share, is that you want to personalize the approach, right? You want to personalize the experience. You want to make a customer feel like it's all about them, right? And that's what convenience is. It means something different to somebody, and it's really a combination of choice, control, and transparency, and giving that power and that ability to choose to that customer is considered convenience. And just again, keep in mind that one size does not fit all. You don't want to just create a blanket standard. You want to consider every behavior, consumer behavior of your customers. And as Zubin talked about, gather the data. Or, like I will suggest, utilize companies like UPS who have spent millions of dollars going out there to grab that insight for you. So UPS has studies out there that you can leverage to really customize that experience and really understand the consumer behavior specifically on that final mile delivery experience. So the second piece is choice. Choice is the other guidepost. And so I'll give you an example of that. Based on our ComScore study or Pulse of the Online study, we found that over half of our consumers said that they would choose a slower shipping option if given a choice. But at the same time, a similar number of people surveyed said that they'd be willing to pay for expedited delivery services. So really the insight from that finding is that our consumers really need options, right? They need choices. And so when they go into your shopping cart and you offer one service level at a flat rate of $5, you are going to miss the boat. You are not going to appease the customer who's looking for choices. Or if I'm that husband that forgot that anniversary gift and I'm buying it last minute and I go onto that website and it does not offer a second day option, I'm gonna abandon cart and look for someone else that can provide that service. So if you think about it from that very basic experience and that engagement, remember what I said, that final mile experience starts well before that package even leaves. It comes from the research phase. And so again, that customer is looking for choices. And UPS offers a website APIs that you can actually build into your shopping cart to display all the different service levels and options that could fit the need of a customer based on their current need or demand for that particular product. The third guidepost is control. So UPS will actually, we think about this in terms of delivery. So what was interesting in our study is that you won't be surprised that 95% of our respondents indicated that they actually track deliveries. I think we all do it on the call, that we probably go into our tracking and daily and look at our Amazon orders and see when they're coming, right? So it's a critical component to have that visibility for that particular customer, right? But what was interesting in the study was that nearly 80% of those consumers said that it was important for them to either be able to select a day of delivery or a delivery time frame. We also found that 37% of customers want to control the delivery so that they can deliver it to an alternate location, like our UPS access points, our lockers, our retail locations like Michael's and CVS. Folks want to move it to somewhere else where it's more secure with longer hours so that they can go out there and pick it up themselves rather than leaving it on a porch and be susceptible for theft, right? So we've suggested this to a lot of our partners over the years, and what we're really advising is to present these options in checkout, because that is a key part of a best-in-class experience. So now you're offering options and choices, and now you're also providing a way of controlling that shipment once it leaves the dock, right? So those are some of the things you think about from a control perspective. So again, however, a lot of companies may not opt in to provide that type of control option in their checkout. And that's certainly okay, because there's other ways that we can provide that control to the consumer, to your end consumers who are receiving your product. And that's through one of our solution applications called My Choice. And My Choice is an application that provides delivery alerts, allows the consumer to plan for orders that are coming via UPS, and also gives them the ability to change delivery locations and days, and also verify committed delivery windows. My Choice actually has over 52 million subscribers in the world, and what we've really driven our customers to do is to really promote this, right? So without having to invest in an application that provides this kind of visibility to their customer, you piggyback off of a solution that we've already created for that end consumer. And what we would want you to do is to embed that into your customer experience and promote that, because it provides that same transparency as well, right? So finally, transparency is the biggest thing, right? Letting consumers see the full visibility of every aspect of their purchase, including availability of stock, the price of the product, the price of delivery, time in transit, returns policy, and the final mile communication are just a few that you have to be transparent on. And if you don't do it, the risk of doing that will create cart abandonment and loss of sales. So returns is a very important piece. That's an example of one. Over half of consumers report taking time looking at the return policy before making a purchase. And 32% of shoppers will abandon cart because they don't like the policy, the return policy. So they're not really just looking at the cost of returns. They want to understand the process, the approval process, the shipping of returns, the speed and mechanism of when they get their refunds, and the visibility and transparency into this entire process is critical to building trust and loyalty. Last December alone, UPS reported 1 million return packages in the month of December every day. So the key takeaway to wrap it all up is one, make your order fulfillment and delivery fast and reliable by partnering with companies like UPS or even folks on our call like Expeditors to create that distribution model and to deliver that fast and reliable service. Second, provide customers options at checkouts. Use those UPS APIs to make them available on the website. Third, integrate solutions like UPS My Choice services and our ship to access point to really understand and meet the needs of a customer based on their final mile delivery experience requests. Third, develop an easy, hassle-free return policy and implement return technology to automate your process. And then finally, I'll leave you that UPS does offer a virtual consultation. There's a lot of information, can probably talk forever for it. I'm probably well over my time, so I'll kind of wrap it up. But we do have a virtual consultation, 15 minutes to get you in front of the right subject matter experts based on your topic. Visit us at www.ups.com/consultation and set that up. And so I'll leave you with this final quote by Karl Auerbach, which is a famous German entrepreneur out there in Europe. And he said there are only two ways to establish competitive advantage: do things better than others or do them differently. Pass it back over to you, Mark. Appreciate the time.
Ronnie, thank you so much. We're running out of time, but so I'm going to sort of truncate this and ask, we're moving forward to one of our regulatory experts, Colin, who has to leave in past. So Colin, talk about sales tax. You there, Cole?
You're muted, Colin. You're muted. Oh dear, what a silly man. Can you see me? Can you see my screen? Everyone happy? Everyone hunky and dory? Fantastic. So to continue on the quotes right there, as I said earlier, death and taxes, the only two things that are certain in life. Now, when you're selling to the United States, it's important to realize that even if you don't have a physical presence in the United States, you will still have a requirement to manage the taxes there if you cross certain thresholds. So what I'm going to do here for the next 7 minutes on the dot is speak very quickly, but also be able to ensure that I give you guys a good overview about how to manage tax in the US and know exactly where you need to react. So first and foremost, with the United States, when you sell there, it's important to think of the states not as one country, but 50 countries connected by an economic union. There is no federal sales tax, right? And the Constitution of the United States allows the states to raise taxes for municipal purposes. You know, police officers, firefighters, infrastructure, you know, you name it, they raise it by a sales tax, right? So, and each individual state, each county, each city can be wildly different. So let's just go into a little bit of depth here. Sales tax, like VAT, is a tax levied on a service or goods at the point of sale. There are 45 states in the US that charge sales tax. And so you would assume that there would be 45 sales tax jurisdictions, right? You know, jurisdictions or authorities that are able to charge certain types of taxes. Well, no, this is America, remember, and things are supercharged there. So there's actually 12,000 different taxing jurisdictions. Each one of those 12,000 have the ability to change the rate of tax on a particular item, as well as being able to grow or shrink their jurisdiction. And when you have an issue is when you trigger Nexus, an extremely cool word for not a very cool thing. And Nexus effectively means when you trigger and cross thresholds, you have an obligation to manage tax in that country and that state even. So let's talk about how you trigger Nexus. Well, before 2018, If you didn't have a physical presence in the States, you'd be absolutely fine. Before 2018, you used to have to hold stock in the state, have a brick and mortar store, have employees, or doing marketing activities within that state to trigger this obligation. However, in 2018, due to the amount of sellers from outside the country that were selling in without sales tax, they introduced a new law called Economic Nexus. Now, it is so vital for you guys to remember this next point. So vital. These two numbers will be the difference between you filing back taxes and penalties and not, right? $100,000 or 200 separate transactions into a state. If you cross either of those, even if you have no physical presence within the state, you have to manage the calculation, the registration, the filing, and the payment of taxes into that state. Now, it's for a calendar year, those $100,000 or 200 separate transactions. $100,000 or 200 separate transactions. Okay, I can almost finish here, but they say that a picture says 1,000 words, right? Well, first and foremost, let me apologize for this disgusting thing above my lip. And the second thing is, let me show you here this map of the United States. Now, in the US, each single one of these discolorations is not actually a county in the States, but it is actually a sales tax jurisdiction. And as the picture says 1,000 words, in Texas, it has over 1,000 different taxing jurisdictions on its own. The reason why is because the Americans are terrified of having a point of authority at the top and ruling down. So what they do is they do trickle down. Like, imagine like a Christmas tree with the executive on top, and then they allow different powers going underneath, each one with less and less power, right? So let me show you a demonstration, right? Because in this place right here, you could be in the same city and have a different rate of tax on the item. Okay, so watch this, check this out. So the next two people in Colorado have bought the same item from the same place at the same time, right? But what you're gonna see right here is, even though they are neighbors on Layden Street right here, you'll notice that they pay two different rates of tax, right? The reason they pay two different rates of tax is because this poor unfortunate soul is stuck in the Commerce City section. As you see, you look down through the numbers right here. I go Colorado state tax, Adams County, scientific and cultural, and the Denver area transport tax here, right? But this guy, unfortunately, was caught in the Commerce City jurisdiction right here. The reason is because Commerce City are looking to create a new tram link through central Denver. And so they raise taxes for certain items, like these guys bought the same item, say it's a laptop, and they're looking to pump as much money into this. Now, this may not be a temporary, or it may not be a permanent tax that's put on top of this, but it's definitely there right now. And the way that states do this is they literally put a map on the table, and like they used to carve up Africa and draw straight lines, they take a highlighter and draw areas around. And it's up to you as a seller, and I cannot stress the importance of this enough, it is up to you as a seller to be able to differentiate between this guy and this guy. In fact, this project right here, this is actually a few months old. And during that time, these guys over here and these guys over here have actually been taken over by Commerce City. And now we show in our newest ones at Avalara, Lotus Street, the difference between right there and there. That should have blown your minds. If it hasn't done, well, then you've spent too much time in tax, right? A couple of silly, complex examples in New York. You can see the things on the right are taxable, things on the right are not. So if I wanted to dress up as Madonna for an 80s party, I'd have to pay tax. But if I wanted to put some shoulder pads on to kick the living hell out of someone on the field, well, then I wouldn't. The classification is so important for each company to understand, so they know exactly what is taxable and what is not. I think the best example I can give is in New York. If I was hungry and I was walking down Fifth Avenue, I wanted to get a bagel. I asked the guy, a cashier, for a bagel. They give me a plain bagel. It's $1, no tax, because it's food, right? Everyone needs to eat. However, if I say I want if I want cream cheese and salmon on that bagel, the moment that knife touches bread, it becomes prepared food and thus is taxable. So the classification on each item is so important. So let's talk here. Just a brief overview for everyone here. Nexus, the connection between the seller and the state. If you cross the nexus and you trigger nexus, you have an obligation. We do that in two ways. You have physical. Either you have stock, either you have sales reps, remote workers attending trade shows, if you have marketing affiliations, right? Or economic, which is most likely, which is 200 transactions or $100,000, and it can differ from state to state. right? So here's what Avalara do, right? We are able to help you understand your tax profile, what you sell, how you sell it, is it liable for tax? And also, how do we manage your returns? How do we actually report that information in, right? Now, complexity is growing. You know, it's becoming more and more difficult for businesses around the world to manage this, right? Because there are constant rule changes. You know, I said there are 12,000 taxing jurisdictions. Well, there are 50,000 tax rates, and there are also 500 changes that occur every 2 weeks within the U.S. So you can't do this manually, right? You know, the biggest difference between income tax and corporation tax is with corporation and income tax, there's a lot of wiggle room, right, to be able to defend and break things, Starbucks, Facebook, Google. While with indirect tax, there's no space between compliant and fraudulent. You either do it right or you do it wrong. So managing these increased complexity of rules adds no value. And also, it's up to you to prove your innocence, right? I can be outside the White House and shoot someone in the face, and a jury of my peers would presume I'm innocent until proven guilty. In an audit, on the other hand, you have to prove yourself innocent from guilty, because and they will audit you. I mean, that's a reality. They will audit you between 3 and 5 years. And if you fail an audit, they'll come back for more and more and more. They're like the school brown bully who's after your lunch money, right? Back taxes, penalties, and interest, that's what you want to avoid. So what do we do at Avalara? Well, we take the information from your source system, we run it through our incredible tax engine, and then we spin up numbers right here. That's it. We're not a tax company. We're a technology company that does tax. Please, 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 if you are thinking about selling to the United States, if you've even come close to crossing the $100,000 or the 200 transactions, please, for the love of God, drop me a 9. I'd love to chat to you and give you some free guidance. That's 9 minutes.
Colin, thank you for that.
Share.
Hello. Thank you, Colin.
Hello.
Appreciate that, and we'll obviously we'll connect you to Colin's email after this event. We are running a little bit behind, so I'm going to ask Tom Thorelli in Chicago to talk to us very much about the other regulatory side to this, which is protecting your brand and also how that's managed from a tax perspective with Antoine. Tom and Antoine, can I ask you to come in on this now?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Boy, have you guys gotten an earful so far today. I think a couple of things to draw from everybody's wonderful presentations that are full of valuable information is you can't really afford to make mistakes when you do business in the US. Largely, you get one chance. Ronnie mentioned it, 89% of people that have a bad experience, they're not coming back. So you need to really be organized and structured. Unfortunately, getting legal assistance in the United States is something that I urge you to get, whether it be from us or whether it be from one of the other approximately 900,000 lawyers that are located in this country. Why are there so dang many lawyers? It's almost half the lawyers in the world. Well, because we use lawyers before we do business in a preventive capacity to minimize legal risk and to acquire legal assets. Now your customers are not trying to acquire any legal assets other than the wonderful products that you're intending to sell. But please keep that in mind. You will be subject to US law. Thinking that, well, I'm going to close my eyes and sell my products according to my UK sales terms and conditions, you're entering the US stream of commerce. You're subjecting yourself to US laws. Your sales terms really should be adapted to US legal circumstances. We could help you with that, like lots of others could. Your warranty, you may have a guarantee. Never use the word guarantee unless you mean I'm going to reimburse your money in full if you have any problem with my product, which is not an unusual approach to take in the United States. But don't think that by giving them a limited guarantee that you're going to really be protected. Limited warranty, that's a different thing. If you're selling a consumer product, that warranty needs to have magic language, the capitalized letters. That are required under consumer protection laws in the United States, that if you don't have it, you will likely be deemed to have provided a full lifetime guarantee. So the purpose of my intervention right now is to talk about protecting your brand. Well, first thing is there's no legal requirement to protect your brand in the United States. Also, you can put the little TM next to your brand And that announces to the world that you have an interest in your trademark or service mark and that you plan on defending that trademark. However, it is not indicative of a registration with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that I'm going to call USPTO. What you need to do if you really want to protect your brand is to seek trademark registration, which requires the filing of a trademark registration application. Unfortunately, as of August last year, you cannot seek trademark registration on your own. The USPTO was inundated with requests for trademark registrations by too many people that knew nothing about the trademark process and believed that a lot of people that had nothing to do with the trademark were trying to trademark squat. And so they decided, okay, the gig is up. Everybody has to have an American lawyer when they seek trademark registration. I can't say that I'm particularly upset by that, but that's the way it is. Many of you use marks that are common words, like Apple for computers, etc., Microsoft, etc. Maybe not those two marks. That wouldn't particularly be a good idea. But if you use a commonly used word, you can pretty much be sure that there are other people using the same word, but perhaps for completely different businesses. But you want to steer clear of those to avoid trademark infringement. Our recommendation normally is to engage in a full trademark search, both for offensive purposes, so that you know what the lay of the land is and how to word your trademark application in order to maximize your chances of success, or even for defensive purposes to ensure that you're not stepping on anybody's toes and running the risk of being accused of willful trademark infringement, which is something you definitely want to avoid. Once the search has been done, and there's no legal requirement that you engage in a search, and by the way, a check of the USPTO's website is nice as a starting point, but it is not viewed as a search in the courts in the United States. But then you apply through the help of an American lawyer, and in about 5-6 months, you'll receive some form of notification from the USPTO about the status of the application. And if everything is in order, in about 9 to 12 months, the mark will be registered, and it will date back to the date that you filed the trademark registration application. The value of registering a trademark is, of course, you can keep people out away from utilizing the same or similar trademarks in association with the same types of products or services. Also, in the event that someone infringes your trademarks, you're allowed to enter federal court in the United States, which generally is preferred to state court. And because federal judges are used to these types of disputes, and you would, one, be able to go to federal court, two, get 3 times whatever damages you may have suffered, and most importantly, get all of your legal fees reimbursed by the infringer. Now, our job at Thorelli Associates is to keep you from getting into fights in the United States, because legal battles are extraordinarily expensive and really even more so time consuming for you. And so the idea here is to take some preventive action, register your trademarks, have that done and on the side. And as a final comment, Mark, registering trademarks in the United States is part of increasing the value of your business, because sooner or later somebody may come knocking on your door interested in buying your business. And if you haven't taken care of protecting your intellectual property, of which your trademark is probably the #1 thing, they're going to wonder, what else haven't you done that you should have done to put your house in order? So I'll leave you with that. We offer 1 hour dang, I have such trouble saying for free. I'm happy, Mark will send you our details. I'm happy to set up a cost-free introductory conversation to address any legal issues and questions that you may have concerning doing business in the US. Thanks, Mark.
Tom, thank you so much. We are a bit overrunning, but I'd like to, if I can, I think one of the bits we've missed so far, which is really important, is how people get paid. And I'd like briefly to ask James Reed from WorldFirst to give us a quick sense of how that can be done smartly in the US. James.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Mark. Obviously, there's a few different kind of moving parts to getting paid, but I think it's one of the things that people don't always have the best sort of visibility on in terms of how much it actually costs to get paid in different currencies and actually have that end up back in your bank account here in the UK. Marketplaces such as Amazon and payment service providers such as the likes of Stripe and Adyen often dictate the payment terms that are offered to. Oh, sorry, I lost myself there. Often dictate the payment terms that their merchants, their customers see. So when you are selling into the US in US dollars, you can have a great journey where your customer will be billed, will pay in their own currency. And then you will be able to get the sterling back in your bank account where you need it in the UK. Unfortunately, there is a cost involved with that process, and it tends to be quite a hefty one, especially when you're looking at selling on the likes of Amazon, selling through payment processors such as Stripe and Adyen, and those costs do tend to add up. So just to give you a bit of an idea. When you sell on Amazon, you'll get given a product called Amazon Pay. It allows you to invoice your customers in their currency and allows them to pay in their currency. And then when repatriating those funds back, they'll typically charge you in the region of sort of 1.5 and 3% of your profits for that transaction back to the UK. The same applies if you are selling via your own website and using the likes of Stripe or, like I said, Adyen or PayPal for that matter. There is often a lofty charge once you have made the sale and you've been paid to actually get those funds back to the UK. And that's where we come in and where we help. So WorldFirst offer a localized bank account facility. It allows you to open bank accounts all around the world from where you can make and receive payments. Those accounts are localized and in country. So as a UK business, we can actually very, very quickly, at the click of a button, give you a US dollar bank account within the US with Citibank, from where you can aggregate your earnings from a number of different places. So whether it be from Amazon, offline sales, or on your website, and enable you to hold those funds and do whatever you want with them. So control those funds. Because what we see quite often is when people are selling overseas, the customer will pay in US dollars. You will receive those US dollars. Your payment processor will send them back to the UK, and often you will need to make a US dollar payment. So what ends up happening is you receive your funds in US dollars. They get transferred back to sterling at a charge of between sort of 1.5 to 3%. And then what happens then is you have to make a payment out the other side from sterling to US dollars, which again can end up costing you quite a lot. So all the way through the process, what you're seeing is charges. And over time, those charges start to build up. And that's where we come into play with those localized bank accounts, which allows you to essentially do business like a local, allows you access to a US dollar bank account with a tier 1 counterparty bank. From where you can do business. So there is no difference as a US buyer when you win a contract and the accounts payable team of the US buyer is making a payment out. There is no difference between your bank account details and the bank account details of the next supplier in the queue, in the accounts payable queue. So that's where we come in. It's all about localizing the payment journey. And helping to bring down those margins.
James, thank you so much. I was reminded we did an event a few weeks ago, and some chap got paid by a check, and that the nightmare of a check payment into the UK is something that you can certainly help with and do a lot more. Thank you very much. So listen, Really appreciate everyone's patience in sticking around longer than we thought, but we've actually haven't included three important players who are really representative of the two regions in the US, which is Greater Phoenix Economic Council and Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, and of course Estelle from the Department for International Trade. So I'm going to briefly, if I can, ask each of those just to give us a little bit of an end webinar wrap of the important part that you play to support UK businesses either soft land into your region or from the UK, Estelle, expand into the US. And maybe if we start with the furthest away, which is Mitchell, then go to Jan, and then end on a high note with Estelle.
Perfect. Again, Mitchell on with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. Our organization, as you're working to better understand, what it's going to take for you to either do business in the U.S. or even open a facility. What our organization will help with is, if you do decide to move forward on leasing a facility or a building, you're going to employ folks. We can help the identification of buildings, identify the labor, understand the overall cost it takes to do business within the state of Arizona as it compares to other markets, and then provide that data to you if that's kind of the best path forward. There may be some incentives available, as well as from a soft landing standpoint, we do have partnerships with universities that can help not only with visas, but low cost to free rent for a short period of time, as well as introductions to other players on the marketplace. So again, I appreciate being here. If there's any other questions, Mark can pass along my information. I do have to run to another meeting here, but I appreciate everyone's time.
Jan, over to you.
Okay, Mark, and thank you so much for organizing this event. This was super insightful and absolutely fascinating. Very much the services that Greater Phoenix Economic Council are providing. We do here on the East Coast of the US. A little more about maybe a plug for the geography here. We are part of Northern Virginia, and basically we are in the center, what we call the third largest economy in the world, is basically after the US and China, basically covering the Boston-Miami corridor. Our region particularly has been very resilient and innovative. Did this during COVID-19. We have seen major expansions from Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and most recently Volkswagen announced their new North American headquarters in Reston, and they signed a lease for 20 years. We're a very global area. We have about more than 400 foreign companies, about 65 from the UK. And let me conclude here, Mark, with basically highlighting the assets and opportunities we see also for e-commerce, definitely for e-commerce. We have a huge international airport called Dulles International Airport. We have great proximity to the data center alley in Loudoun County. And companies like Amazon Web Services are already headquartered here in Northern Virginia since 2013. So again, I see for 2021 major opportunities for e-commerce. And thank you so much for the speakers for this insightful material. It's fascinating. Thank you. Back to you, Mark.
Jan, that's very kind. Appreciate that. Estelle, the DIT plays a really pivotal role in helping UK companies internationalize. Do you want to just give a little bit of a sense of your 50 e-commerce platforms that you can help companies with?
Yes, we've got a tool online on great.gov.uk called Selling Online Overseas. And that tool lists 50 platforms with which we have signed some specific terms. So you will get a reduced fee to enter the platform, but you will also fall under the Great Promotions banner. So you will get more exposure basically whilst being on that platform. And in a lot of cases, you will get a specific account manager as well. So we can help that relationship, understanding which one to enter and why, and hold your hand as much as we can throughout the way. Thank you.
Estelle, thank you so much for that. We've really had a fantastic broad brush approach to e-commerce and expansion in the US. And I'm very conscious we've covered a huge amount of ground in a very short time at a breakneck speed. I would like to thank all of our presenters who have put their case, and it's been a very powerful one. And all those presenters are more than happy to have some extended one-to-one time with all you delegates who've come onto this call. We've also, I believe, Ian, we've recorded this video. So if you want to share this with colleagues, we will make this, in fact, Ian's a thumbs up on that. So this will be available for others who haven't seen it if they want to pick up some hints and tips. But more importantly, to all you delegates, we will be sending you a contact list with all those experts who have been on this call today. And through GTM, we can organize one-to-one sessions with you to help you and your e-commerce expansion into the US in 2021. Until then, thank you all for your time, your patience, and your ears. And we hope to see you very soon. In the meantime, stay safe and stay well. Thank you and good night.